Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Proactive Learning YouTube channel. Today we're going to go through question 19 from the 2021 International GCSE past paper. So let's see what the question is asking us. The straight line L has equation x minus y is equal to 3. The curve C has equation 3x squared minus y squared plus xy is equal to 9. L and C intersect at the points P and Q. Find the coordinates of the midpoint of PQ. Show clearly your algebraic working. So, what we basically need to think about here is we've got two lines that meet at 2 points, points P and points Q. So whenever we want to find points of intersection, what do we usually want to do? So what we usually want to do is sub one of them, or sub one of the equations, into the other. But the next question you might be asking is, how do we choose which one to sub into the other? And the main reason, or the main reasoning behind it is, you always want to sub in the one that looks simpler. So in this case, if we have a look at both of these equations, the top equation, or the straight line L, it just looks a lot easier to deal with, compared with the curve C. So from here, let's think about how we could substitute this in. So if our straight line L has the equation x minus y, and that's equal to 3. Now here, you could either make x the subject or y the subject. In this case, let's make x the subject. So to get x on its own, what do we need to do to both sides? We need to do the opposite of taking away y, which is adding y to both sides. Now once we've added y to both sides, the right hand side becomes 3 plus y. So 3 plus y is equal to x. Now from here, what we want to do is substitute this into the equation of the curve. So we have 3x squared minus y squared plus xy, and all of that is equal to 9. But now here, wherever we have an x, we will substitute 3 plus y into it. So we have 3, then we have 3 plus y all squared, take away y squared plus. Now here we have x multiplied by y. So in other words, we can write y brackets 3 plus y, and all of that is equal to 9. So from here, what we want to do is start expanding out brackets and see if we can simplify anything. So whenever we have a pair, or whenever we have a set of brackets squared, we can write it like this. Then we have a minus y squared, then we have a plus y, 3 plus y is equal to 9. So from here, let's start expanding out these brackets and see if anything simplifies. So we had a 3 on the outside, but now let's expand out this set of double brackets. So 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times y is positive 3y, y times 3 is positive 3y, and then we have y multiplied by itself, so we get plus y squared. Then we subtract y squared, and then we add. Now here, y times by 3 is the same as just positive 3y, and then y times by y, so itself, is just positive y squared, and all of that equals 9. Now here, we're almost done with expanding everything out, but we need to times everything on the inside of this bracket by 3, because we've got a 3 on the outside. So let's do that. So 9 times 3 is 27, then 3 times 3y is positive 9y, then we have another positive 9y, and then we have a positive 3y squared. Then we take away y squared, add 3y, plus y squared, and all of that is equal to 9. So from here, let's first have a look at our y squared terms. So we have one y squared term here, so we have positive 3y squared. We have a negative y squared and a positive y squared. So in other words, we've got 3 lots of something, we're taking away 1 lot, and we're adding 1 lot. So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with 3y squared. Now let's have a look at the y terms. So we have a positive 9y here, we have another positive 9y here, we have a positive 3y here. So in other words, we've got 9 lots of something, adding 9 lots of something, add 3 lots of something. What does that equal? That equals positive 21y. Now from here, we have a plus 27 on the left-hand side, and that equals 9. But what we want to do here is, whenever it comes to finding solutions or solving quadratics like we're doing here, we want one of the sides to be equal to 0. So in this case, we need to move this 9 to the left-hand side. How do we do that? We subtract 9 from both sides. So in this case, we have 3y squared plus 21y plus 27 minus 9, and all of that equals 0. Now here, what's 27 minus 9? 27 minus 9 is just 18. So we're left with 3y squared plus 21y plus 18, and that is equal to 0. So now, as you're probably thinking, what we want to do now is to factorize, to find out what values of y we could possibly get. But what we want to make sure we do is we want to not only save time, but we also want to make this as easy as possible for ourselves. So how do we do that? So one thing we can realize here is 3 is divisible by 3, 21 is divisible by 3, and 18 is divisible by 3. So let's just divide everything by 3. If we do so, we get y squared plus 7y plus 2, and all of that is equal to 0, isn't it? Now, the next thing that we need to think about here is, how do we factorize this? Apologies, that would not be 2, that would be 6. So from here, how do we factorize this? So there's lots of different ways you can factorize it. Personally, I have a look at the coefficient of y squared and the constant, which is 1 and 6. You times those together to get 6. Then you have a 7 from the coefficient of your y. And what we need to do here is find two numbers that add to make 7 and times to get 6. And in this case, it's pretty obvious. It's 1 and 6. So in this case, we write out our double brackets. We put a y at the start, then plus 1, then y plus 6. And all of that is equal to 0. So from here, now, if y plus 1 is equal to 0, what does y equal? So here we need to do the opposite. So instead of adding 1, we'll subtract 1 from both sides, and that leaves us with y is equal to negative 1. And on this case, if y plus 6 is equal to 0, in this case, y is equal to, what's the opposite of adding 6? It's subtracting 6. So now, what have we actually found out? What we found out are the y coordinates of our points P and Q. But it's not enough to just find the y coordinates, we need to actually find the x coordinates as well. But how do we do that? Is there anything that we've done at the start of the question that could help us? So if we have a look back up at the question, or closer to the start, we made an expression for x in terms of y, didn't we? So let's use that. So x is equal to 3 plus y. And we've already found out y is either equal to minus 1 or y is equal to minus 6. So when y is equal to minus 1, what is x equal to? X is equal to 3 plus negative 1, which is the same as 3 minus 1, which is equal to 2. Now, what about when y is equal to negative 6? In this case, x is equal to 3 plus negative 6, which is the same as 3 take away 6, which is equal to negative 3. So in other words, we found out the points P and Q, haven't we? One of them is going to be 2, negative 1, and the other is going to be minus 3, minus 6. But is that our question done? Have we sort of answered the question? We haven't. So we found out what our points P and Q are, but where we get the final marks is by finding the midpoint. Now, how do we find the midpoint of two coordinates? How do we do that? So one way you could do that is by thinking about it visually, right? So if we have a small sketch here, 2 minus 1 is somewhere here, isn't it? 2 minus 1. Negative 3, negative 6 is somewhere here, isn't it? Negative 3, negative 6. And what we want to do is find where the middle of this is. So one way that we could think about it is to go from -3 to 2. How many do we need to move in the x direction? We need to move +5 in the x direction, don't we? Now, what about in the y direction? In the y direction, we need to move another +5 as well, because we're going from -6 to -1, aren't we? But from here, what about if we do exactly half of that? What if we move +2.5 in the x direction and +2.5 in the y direction? Let's see if that works. So if we have -3, -6, and we just add 2.5 and add 2.5 to our x and y coordinates, what do we get? What we get is -1/2, and then we get -6 plus 2.5, that gives us -7/2. So that would be our midpoint. It would be -1/2, -7/2. How else could we check this? Another way you can find the midpoint is by just adding together the x coordinates and dividing by 2. So 2 adding -3, that's the same as 2 minus 3. Then if you divide that by 2, you get -1/2. On the other hand, if we have -1 plus -6, that's the same as -1 take away 6. And if we divide that by 2, we get -7/2. So here would be the correct midpoint of PQ. So -1/2, -7/2. So with this question, it's a relatively nice question, all things considered. All you have to do is make sure you pay attention to every step you're doing in your working. Take it slow. Don't rush it so you don't make any silly mistakes. And hopefully that helped. Hopefully it answered some questions you guys had about how to do this question. Feel free to let me know any other questions that you want me to show the solution to. Drop those in the comments. And with that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And that will be it for today's video. See ya.